Hey, what's happening? Tercy, what is going on? Anything exciting happening there? Yes, I am live. It is very rare that I'm live. It's very common that I'm alive, but very rare that I'm actually live. So yes, I am live and wanting to talk to everyone. Everyone that wants to talk, I'm here. So what's on your mind? You're in Scotland. It's like let's see, 9. Yeah, it's like 2 in the morning in Scotland. What are you doing? Coming back from the bars or what? Scotland. I like Scotland. I've been there, and I would like to go back. I don't know when exactly that's going to happen, but I do plan on going back to Scotland at some point because it's a good place to get some haggis and good beer. So whiskey, if you're into that sort of thing. Not really my thing, but it's okay. Totally bemused? Yeah. Aren't we all? I think we're all a little bit bemused about what's going on in America these days. Yeah, we are pretty screwed up at the moment. Yeah, it is definitely a thing that is not so great going on right now with COVID, and the entire south and west of the country pretty much is, if you look at the maps from like the comparison to previous cases to current cases, it's like the whole thing's on fire. It's just red. And then the entire northeast part pretty much is blue or green or however, whatever they end up calling it, depending on the map. Um, that becomes a lot less. The cases are actually dropping there. But in the south and the west, cases are spiking all over the place. So it is. All right. It is pretty bad. So what's going on in Scotland? Anything exciting? Okay. I'm posting some stuff so that perhaps people will see me and see this, and they will come and say hello. You're opening up on the 5th of July. So what's actually going to be opening? Like what stage of opening are you at the moment? What is the so you've only had 2 deaths in the last 2 weeks? That is remarkable and astounding and great. We have almost 1,000 deaths every single day here still, and it's of course going up now. So today our total new deaths today actually 597, which compared to what it was the other day, it's actually not too bad. That's kind of about where we've been. But judging by, of course, the new cases that we have, that is not going to last. It is going to start getting higher. So hairdressers are going to be open. Okay, well, see, in most of the U.S., hairdressers were already open like a few weeks ago. I actually got a haircut like 3 weeks ago, and my state was not one of the earlier ones to reopen. But we had so much we had so many cases, and there were so many states that actually opened at that point. It was surprising. So, barber shops where you can buy boxers. Okay, so so yeah, basically that's a huge difference between there and here. Definitely was a lot quicker to come up here. So. Yep, definitely. Okay, I will post that there. So I'll be on for 1 hour. So we have 1 hour to chat and find out what's happening. And I see that 8 people are on. So I wanted to talk a little bit about the Tulsa thing. First of all, those of you who've been following what happened with Trump's Tulsa rally, so he basically got completely rolled by these K-pop stands, as they call them, or whatever. And I realized I don't think what actually happened was that they got all the tickets that were available, because basically I think it's first come first served anyway. So I don't think what happened was that they stopped other people from coming. I just think what happened was they fooled them by making them think that their numbers were just huge, were just the numbers of people that wanted to come were enormous. And which is strange anyway, because like Tulsa's a city of like, maybe a few 100,000. I don't know. I could easily look it up. Maybe it's 500,000. I don't know. I certainly don't think it's. Yeah. So it's just under 400,000. The city of Tulsa. So I don't know by what metric they thought they were going to get over 1 million people. So they were basically thinking that they were going to get all 400,000 people that were in Tulsa, and then hundreds of thousands from the suburbs. It's just I don't understand that. I don't get where they were getting that from. But so yeah, the fake asking for tickets, I don't think it stopped anyone that actually wanted to go from going. I just think it made them inflate the numbers, and now Brad Parscale, who's he's Trump's campaign manager. I think he's in big trouble now, because now he's going to be under scrutiny by Trump. He's going to be upset because he's like, hey, you told me there's going to be tons of people that wanted to come, and then it was wrong, and it makes me look bad, which it does. He looks bad because he is bad. So Big Ralph Smith says, from what I heard, they reserved a crap load of seats. Yeah, I mean, yes, they did reserve a crap load of seats. I'm not sure if it works like that, though, that like you can reserve and then that is taken out from the pool of other seats. I'm not 100% sure if it works like that. But I've never actually gone to like a political rally before, and obviously never a Trump one. So yeah, and Trump can't do math, and there are a lot of people that actually plausibly they actually say that they suspect he doesn't read all that well. He doesn't read very much. He doesn't seem to ever say that he can read all that often. He doesn't say anything that he actually reads, and then the few times that he actually reads something, it seems like it's kind of halting, and I don't know, it's weird. But I mean, of course, he reads a teleprompter, and I guess that's something, but it's so strange. So Tercy says, "I love you people. You helped so much with the world becoming democratic." Yep. Trying. Meagle says, "Why is the left dwelling on the Tulsa rally? Seems petty. I think the left wants to find victories anywhere they can get them." I mean, at the moment, victories are pretty easy to come by. I mean, all you have to do is just wait for Trump to stumble over his own shadow, because he seems to do that like every day at this point. I don't think that I don't think that the rally is a big deal in the grand scheme of things. The thing is this: Trump is someone who is very egotistical, very narcissistic. He's a guy that always wants to think about how it's going to look to him, how it's going to look on him, like whether it makes him look bad. And if anything makes him look bad, it makes him super upset. And so it's kind of this. It's yes, obviously there's a bit of Schadenfreude in it as well, where people want to see bad things happen to bad people, and there's obviously an element of that. But yeah, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, sure, it doesn't really make that much of a difference. It's just funny, is most of it. So, I mean, finding victories anywhere you want to find them. Yeah, like I said, I don't think it's hard to find victories at the moment, but it's just fun. Big Ralph Smith says, many people close to him say he has like an 8th grade reading level. Yeah, there are a lot of people that say that that's probably the case. It's not exactly like his job requires him to read very much, and he never seemed for anybody that knows him like someone who's super interested in learning and actually intellectual curiosity about the world around him doesn't seem to be one of his biggest traits, you know. So, so yeah. Yeah, exactly. And Chris, like you said, not only funny, but personally destroying his ego. Yes, that's very much what it is. And to someone like Trump, who feeds off of that positive energy, if he's getting negative energy, that's gonna upset him. It's gonna lead him to more gaffes, more issues, and who doesn't want that, right? So, Tercy, so would you consider running a VOD with maybe a voice chat, let people come talk live with you? I would love to do that actually. I'm not going to do that this stream, but I would like to figure out how best to do that in future streams. I do want to mix some streams into my content. I still mainly am going to be doing videos as I normally do, but I do want to start streaming more and more content into this. So, and also, even just getting the live chat, I don't even think that I don't think that when this actually goes live, that the live chat's actually going to be on the video, which I would like it to be, but I'm not sure that it works like that or not. So maybe it does. Maybe it's just been so long since I've done a live stream, and I've done so few live streams in general. Typically, even my more freewheeling, like non-scripted stuff, I typically will pre-record that, so I'm not usually live like right now. But yeah, eventually I would like to do that. Let's see. Do you know how you do know normie has a negative connotation? Miguel says. Yeah, I mean it does. I guess it has a negative connotation to some, um, and that's I don't know. I mean normie to me that just means kind of like someone who's boring, or maybe someone who isn't a very complex thinker, let's say, or someone that is afraid to branch out into things, into other topics or something like that. I don't know. Big Ralph Smith says, if you maybe chat. Oh, no, what was your main reason for your extended hiatus from YouTube? So my extended hiatus, there was nothing that really stopped me from making videos. I just I didn't have the drive to make videos for a while, and everything was fine. Like my life, fine, great even for the most part. Um, I was just doing other things, and YouTube wasn't my focus at that moment. And it's been 10 years now since I made my first. It's been a little over, yeah, it's been a bit over 10 years now since I made my first video for sort of public consumption, if you will. And I was kind of tired of it for that moment, and I just I didn't have anything else that I wanted to say at that moment. But now that there are more things going on in the world, like with the protests and with COVID and the economy and the presidential election and all these things, I really just want to be involved again in the conversation. And you know what? There is actually, if you wanted to point to one thing, one video that is actually the reason that I am back here at the moment, it would be the video of Vosh and Paul's ego talking about politics and talking about the state of the political landscape and stuff like that. And those are two people that I really like and I really feel are very interesting and intelligent people. And they're, as with almost anyone, you could say this about, I don't always agree with either of them necessarily. In that particular debate or discussion between them, I was leaning more toward what Vosh was saying in terms of politics, but they both really had a good insight, and I really was interested to hear what Paul said about unions and his experience with unions when he was a kid and with his dad and stuff like that. It really gave me a different perspective on how that might work. Because growing up, I was certainly aware of unions, and I know that unions have lost a lot of power over the decades. But the whole concept of solidarity between workers is interesting. And yeah, I mean, they're both very interesting people. And to be honest, it was that video with Vosh and Paul talking that sort of spurred me into thinking, hey, I'd really like to be part of this conversation again. And so this is why I'm back. So if you want to thank anybody, I mean, in Paul's Ego, I've been watching over the years here and there as well. But Vosh really is sort of new to the scene, at least new to me. I know he's been around for a bit, but I hadn't heard of him before. So if you want to thank anyone, thank Vosh for my return. um, so yeah, TMM says, when I heard that DPR Jones died, I rewatched the interview he did with him at the Reason Rally. It was great. Thanks, TMM. Yes, and greetings to you, good sir. That's a guy that makes some good content right there too. So yeah, with DPR Jones, I was sad when I heard that he died. At first, I was like, well, I mean, DPR is not. I was like, DPR is not that old, and then I found out that he's actually in his 60s, which is still not old. But I didn't even know anything was wrong with him. But he apparently, I think he lived alone, so I don't really know very much about what happened, and we were certainly friends, and um, he'll be missed. But I mean, it had been a few years probably since I'd had any interaction with him, so it wasn't like we were super tight, but certainly one of those old school atheist YouTubers who really he was really a guy that was one of the pioneers and certainly was popular already when I started over 10 years ago. And so yeah, Bree, no cats, I'm leaving. Yes, there are no cats in here right now. However, there are definitely two cats. They're just not right here right now, but they're around, believe me. Um, so yeah, uh, well, thanks, Jersey. I appreciate that. Mr. YouTube Vid is an interesting person. Would love to chat live with you. Well, if I ever come to Scotland, what part of Scotland are you, by the way? Are you in rather? I've been so when I went to Scotland, I went to Edinburgh, I went to Glasgow, I went to Isle of Skye, I went to Inverness. I was up in the sort of the northwest part. I was all over, but West Coast, Glasgow. Okay, yeah, Glasgow was interesting. Um, yeah, so let's see. Yeah, when I go, and Glasgow was particularly interesting because you hear about the sort of toughs in Glasgow. The guys that have the Adidas athletic gear, and then they got kind of the soccer haircut or whatever, like whatever they all look kind of rough. They're all missing a couple teeth, those kind of guys. And Glasgow seemed to have a lot of them. Like I was told before I went to Scotland, I was like, Glasgow's the rough part of Scotland, and I actually did see several of those guys. Glasgow was also the place that I saw the Orange March, and that was when I didn't realize before that they have not the troubles in the sense that they had in Northern Ireland necessarily, but it's that exact same sort of conflict between the Catholics and the Protestants. And the Protestants were holding a march, and the police were like on high alert. There were like two police on like every intersection in the area where they were going to march, because they basically do this to. It's almost like an antagonistic sort of thing. It seems that they do, which is puzzling. But yeah, historic religious bigotry. Well, yeah, and it's just this constant push pull back forth about this sort of thing. So Chris Jeffer says, what about Biden being the weakest Dem to be a leader for the party? Yeah, I mean, I was clearly not. I was certainly not. I did not vote for Biden in the primary. I will certainly vote for him in November, but I was a Warren supporter. Um, Before that, I could certainly have been convinced before Booker and Kamala Harris actually before they dropped out. I certainly would have potentially voted for them, but once those two were gone, Warren was the obvious choice for me of the four at the time who were remaining when I voted in the primary. So I mean, and now Trump's like shooting himself in the foot so often and so badly that at this point, I think Biden's wise to stay in the news, stay conscious, but don't You don't have to try to hit a home run every time. Just hit a single. Just go out there, hit a single. Don't say anything silly. Don't give people anything to hit you with, and that's so. Exactly. So Meagle says, "Do you think Biden has a chance in November? You're poking fun at Trump, but I think Biden rally would just have tumbleweeds and crickets." Well, in the COVID era, yeah, of course he's gonna have tumbleweeds and crickets. I mean, Trump pretty much had tumbleweeds and crickets, and that's not really gonna change. I mean, people aren't necessarily going to go out there and be super excited about, yeah, Biden, he's some transformative figure. But you look at the two together, you look at the polling now, and it's very clear that he's way ahead. And yes, of course, that just means if the election were held today, then yes, I am very confident that he would win. However, the election is not till 4 months from now, and a lot can happen. So it's hard to say for sure. I mean, he's in about as good a position as you can get at the moment, and we'll see what happens. DPR had ongoing health problems, just didn't talk about it. Yeah, I heard that as well. I heard that he had, I think he was diabetic, which can be lifespan shortening, but so there were, I guess there were some other things involved there as well. So did you see the Madison woman who was set on fire last night? I did see there was something that happened in Madison. I am not entirely sure what happened there specifically. Do I have a PayPal or donations link? Well, yeah, I have a Patreon actually, and that's and there's a link to that in my videos, and I appreciate it. If you want to be a patron, I very much appreciate it, and that certainly does help me get the sort of the a little extra drive to make more videos. I don't ever make more than typically a video a week. I mean, if that does change at some point, that might change at some point. I don't know. But yeah, just you can do it as on a per video basis. And then you can just cap whatever the monthly total is, so that it's not it doesn't go over your budget or whatever. But yeah, I appreciate it. It's it's on Patreon, and so. Big Ralph Smith says Biden just needs to remain relevant. Yeah, that's true, and that's the thing. He can't just completely disappear, and he hasn't. He's been saying things here and there, and having an occasional public appearance. That's really what he needs to do. He also can make a big splash once he picks his VP. The VP pick is super important. It really is super important, but I do think though that a lot of his VP choices, most of the people that have already decided they're not going to vote for Biden, that are left leaning, it's not going to matter who the VP is. I've had a couple conversations with people who I didn't really know very well, and they were like, "Well, I hope he picks so and so as the VP or whatever." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, well, yeah, that sounds good. Well, what about so and so?" And we'll go back and forth a few times, and I'll be like, "So if he picked this person, if he picked Demings or something like that, would you vote for him?" And then they'd be like, "Oh no, I'm not going to vote for Biden no matter who he picks." I'm like, "Oh, okay, why did we even have this conversation?" I guess it's whatever. But yeah, there's a bit of that occasionally. But yeah, I think most people, people are so polarized right now. It's just I don't see a lot of big shifts. I think there'll be even fewer of those now than there were in 2016, where there were some shifts. So, yeah, America. So, Tercia, the problem in America is partially voter suppression for sure. It's a huge problem. 600,000 with one voting booth. Yeah, exactly. I mean, sure, they have absentee ballots, they have whatever, but in a place, and that was in a primary, which is bad enough. But can you imagine if that's what it's like in the general election? Yeah, that's not good, and that is that's absolutely terrible. And the Voting Rights Act, basically the narrowing of the Voting Rights Act a few years ago, really gave the green light to a lot of these mostly southern states to just cut down on polling places, because they all believe, and somewhat correctly, if they can make it really hard to vote, it's going to actually help Republicans. And they have no fear of the Supreme Court coming down on them, because the Supreme Court's already said, this voting problem, it's, the Voting Rights Act or whatever, we're already past that. But we're clearly not. We're not past anything. We're still really where we were. So Glitch42 says, are you surprised that progressives had success on Tuesday, even though they didn't employ door knocking? Do you think the party will evolve, and if so, at what speed? Yeah, I was actually happy that Jamal Booker, I think, beat Elliot Engel in New York, because Engel was the guy, if you remember, he was the guy that was at the protests and was caught on a hot mic saying, "Oh, yeah, I'm only here because I'm in a primary or whatever," and yeah, that just reeks of being out of touch, completely out of touch, and those guys have to go. And that is the perfect district, by the way, if more progressive Democrats are going to gain more of a voice in the party, which I do overall think that they should, but I don't want that to be at the expense of seats that could be swing states where they could mess things up, like Andrew Gillum, who Bernie supported in Florida in 2018, and that really cost the party potentially a Senate seat as well as the governorship in Florida, and that was a bad choice. But there are some people in cases where it's a very safe Democratic seat. That's exactly the kind of seat where you get rid of someone like Engel, some dinosaur, and you bring in someone that is a lot fresher. And so, yeah. Meagle says Trump's greatest strength is that he's a populist and a large base behind him, a silent majority, might say. You might say, oh yes, the silent majority. Yikes! So that's like the Nixon silent majority? Is that the silent majority we're talking about, Meagle? Yeah, I mean, Biden might not have enthusiasm behind him compared to Trump on his side, but I think the overall number of people that are willing to vote Trump is less than last time. I would be very, very surprised if Trump gets as many total popular votes as he got last time. He's probably going to get less, I would think. And if he does get less, he's toast. Because I would be shocked if Trump had fewer votes, but then Biden had even fewer than that, fewer than Hillary got, and then ended up losing. That seems highly unlikely, but still 4 months out. I can't. It's really hard. I would say that if it were to happen now, then yeah, of course, Biden wins easily. But again, we still have over 4 months. Wouldn't be surprised there's a last-second switcheroo and Biden was replaced. It doesn't work like that. I don't know where people get this impression that it can just work like that. I mean, believe me, if I could do it, and if I thought that was a recipe for success, then I'd be like, well, yeah, let's take Biden out, put Warren in. I'd do that 100 times. I'd do that so quick, but it's that's not how it works. So yeah. What state am I in? I am in the state of Virginia. I live in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. So Trump's practically my neighbor. Yeah. So this will be the first election, Big Ralph Smith says, where I vote against someone rather than for someone. Yeah. And that's sometimes what you have to do. Sometimes you just have to vote strategically, and that's okay. Maybe Biden will only be there for one term, and then someone else will take his place in 2024 who's better on the Democratic side, maybe. But still, yeah, that corporations are people. Yeah, well, that's the thing. The Supreme Court, Trump gets back in, RBG is not going to survive another 4 years. There's just I just don't see it. So that seat's got to be filled, and so it's got to be filled by someone that does not think that corporations are people. So AOC won in a district that is D plus 29. It's incredibly tilted already. District plus 30. Reps have been pushing universal coverage since the 80s. Well, yeah. There are highly partisan advantages for Dems. Don't see it as indication anything of the district's voting preferences. Well, yeah, I mean that's the district. That is the district voting preference. But so for those seats that are highly Democratic, yes, those politicians can be more progressive, which is going to reflect the views of their district. But of course, there are a lot of Democrats that have to be a little bit more careful about how they package things, even if they believe Medicare for all is a solution, or they believe the public option, or believe whatever. They need to sort of massage the message a little bit. So, hey, what's happening, Chris B? Yes, Chris B. Yes, Chris is a real life friend of mine. What's happening? He will get less. So 2.5 million base voters died and replaced by young Dems. That is almost certainly the case. So, yeah, if everybody voted the exact same way as 2016, Trump would still lose. Yeah, I completely agree. And in those states, Chris, where let's see, those 3 states that were the most critical, the sort of tipping point states, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, those tend to be an older population anyway. So that population is going down the conveyor belt faster, I think, than some others. So, hey, what's happening, Mike? Another real life friend of mine who I met on Overwatch, and as you can see, I've got the. So who can tell me which character this is that I'm wearing? Well, I have to. It's a little too easy. I have to cover up the name. The name's actually on him. I forgot. So okay. So yeah, you're dealing with that in Oklahoma, and Mike, you missed the part where I was just talking about Oklahoma. What was going on in Tulsa, in your neck of the woods. So so yeah, you are definitely dealing with that there. Okay, even Richard Nixon had a plan for universal health care. U.S. has tilted far to the right over the past 50 years. And there's been some tilt, Mr. Autopants, to the right potentially. I think, though, part of it is just there just hasn't been a push for it, for healthcare, because everybody just it's very, very easy to just say, well, it's too difficult, or well, we're too big a country, we just can't for whatever reason. And there's always the issue of cost, whatever. And they'll just say, well, it's too expensive and we won't do it, even though other countries manage to do it. It's more a matter of the political will to do it. And the ACA was a good start, but it, of course, was not entirely sufficient, and they wanted it to go further. The thing that irritates me, though, about people who say, "Oh, the ACA was nothing" or whatever, like they forget what the situation was. The situation was they had to overcome a filibuster. Ted Kennedy had died, and then he had Scott Brown come in, who was a Republican replacement. That was the 60th vote that they needed in order to get it passed. So they had to water it down a bit. There was really no choice. They couldn't just ram it through with that. They had to get 60 votes. So they had to get rid of the public option. They had to do a lot of things that they didn't want to do. But it was at least a start, and that's, you got to start somewhere and start that ball rolling. Support for universal coverage is much higher than it was, 10, 20 years ago, before, or, well, 12 plus years ago, before ACA. So, yeah, not to mention COVID. Yeah, and COVID, COVID absolutely has changed some people's minds. I'm sure it has, and the time is definitely ripe to do it. However, I could almost guarantee you that Republicans are still going to block it if they can block it. They don't. The Republicans in charge are taking the calculated risk that it's not going to hurt them very much, even though it's an issue that most Democrats are united on and Republicans are probably split on. Republicans are almost certainly not going to allow it, even if more Republicans want it than don't want it. I don't see McConnell coming to the table on that issue. So we'll see. Tercy says, your government is bought by corporate money. Get money out of politics. That is a good idea. That'll be difficult to do, and that'll take some Supreme Court work first, I would say. Mr. Autopants says, agree with what you're saying about the political will. That's really what it's about. Yeah, the political will, and you have to have the sheer numbers. There's a matter of will, but then there's a matter of actually counting the number of representatives and senators you have. There's no substitute for that. You can't just be like, well, we really want it, but if you've got too many people on the other side that are opposing it, it's not going to happen. So yeah. Oh, you're a Roadhog main, Unknown Perception. Yes, I'm a Roadhog main as well. He's my main tank for sure. He's always been my main tank. Well, even though he's not a main tank, as those who play Overwatch will understand what I mean. He's an off tank, but he's a fun tank to play. And I've occasionally put some plays of the game at the end of my videos where I play Roadhog. So yeah. Big Ralph Smith says, not this time. Oh yeah. So Ed, what's happening, Ed? Good to see you. Ed is another friend of mine. I've known Ed for like 20 years. We used to work together. Do you think Texas or Georgia could go blue this year? Yes, they both could. No, they probably both won't. It is still going to be another cycle or two probably for those states to truly be purple, like really have a good chance of going either way. Sure, it's possible. Texas was within single digits last time. I think it was 9 points, something like that, if I remember correctly. It was. I'm pretty sure it was less than 10% that Hillary actually lost by, but she did better than Obama did in both states, if I remember correctly, in both of Obama's elections, I should say. So Texas is definitely trending further blue. So is Arizona. Arizona is a state that could, for the first time in decades, actually vote for a Democrat this time. They are actually quite close, and if anything, Biden's probably leading right now. If I had to put money on it, I would gladly put money on Biden winning if the election were to be held today. But again, over 4 months out, hard to say. Georgia, yeah, Georgia might have a better shot than Texas, Chris. I think you're probably right. It's close. I mean, Georgia and Texas, like there are definitely some similarities there. Georgia's a bit smaller than Texas. I mean, almost everything's smaller than Texas. It can change quickly. I do think that it's really close. I think Georgia could be in play this time, maybe. I don't believe Texas is in play. And the thing is too, if Biden's close in Georgia, he's already won in a landslide. He doesn't need Georgia. If he's running that strong in Georgia, that means he's already going to have won North Carolina. He would already have won Michigan, already won Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. That's already one more state that he needs. So, yeah. And I know you're not a cheerleader, Chris. You're kind of a pox on both their houses kind of person. Which by the way, I mean, I'm not necessarily opposed to that thinking in general. I mean that it's not the best. It's not certainly the best matchup, but the thing is, in 2016, I think there was a lot of complacency. There's definitely not that complacency now. So now there's a lot of polarization, but people are going to go to the polls. So I don't think anyone's going to sneak up on anyone again. The big wild card, I think, is COVID at this point. There could be, we'll see how that plays out, and voting by mail and all this other stuff. We got some time to figure that out. How would I rate Northam? Ed says, so I would rate Northam as he's done very well with the COVID stuff, with the COVID crisis. He handled the blackface incident almost as poorly as you could possibly imagine. Like, did everything wrong. Just, I don't know how you screw that up so badly. like he didn't he sort of zigged and zagged, and like he was like, well, I'm not going to say which one was me in the picture, and they didn't want to say anything at all, and then like he just botched it. He should have just picked, like, huddled up once it came out, huddled up with some advisors and said, okay, how are we going to handle this? And then once they hammered it out in a room, then you figure out how you handle it. You apologize. You say, okay, it's not acceptable. I'm not going to, this is certainly not anything I should have done. But just this whole, it was handled poorly. But for COVID, he's doing very well. And he's in fact, I believe, the only governor at the moment who is a medical doctor. And he has handled it very well. Not that you have to be a medical doctor to handle it well, but he has. And he's someone that actually understands science and believes I shouldn't say believes, he accepts science. Because, as the T-shirt says, right, that the well-known T-shirt, science is true whether you believe it or not. So, yeah. Tercy says, states like Texas are not in play. They will make sure there are no booths for Dems to vote in. Just look at the last Dem votes in recent states. That's certainly possible. Texas is another state where it's kind of like, if they're that close in Texas, they're going to win all the other states easily. Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, they all have Democratic governors now. So that in the last time Michigan and Wisconsin had Republican governors. So that's going to be potentially a change. There's going to be less chance that they're going to try to screw around with the voting booths, that kind of thing. So vote by mail. Yeah, your whole state votes by mail. Oh, yeah, you're probably in Oregon then, because that's I believe that's the only state that votes entirely by mail, if I remember correctly. Utah votes a lot by mail, but are there 5 that vote entirely by mail? I mean, there's not as an option, but just like entirely by mail. Are there 5? Okay, I didn't think there were 5. Utah, because Oregon and Utah, Oregon has been for a while, and then Utah, I think you can always vote by mail, and you don't need an excuse or something like that. I know it's different per state, but and I may very well do mail in myself in Virginia. I don't think we need a specific exception to cast an absentee ballot. So, Frank, how's it going? Another friend of mine from way back when. He's known me since I was 20, I think, or 21, something like that. So, hey, what's going on? So yeah. Oh, you're in Washington. Yes. Okay. In Washington, you don't have to, though. I think in Oregon, I don't know. I'm not sure. But anyway, yeah, there's definitely a lot of states that are vote by mail at this point, and there's going to be even more, I think, in the future. And Trump, of course, is trying to he's trying to reduce the likelihood of any states being able to do mail-in voting because he claims it's fraud, which of course is nonsense. There's nothing to show that that's accurate, but that's as I was telling one of my friends earlier today, I said Trump says a lot of things, so you kind of have to figure out why he says half the things he says. So Trump is trying to defund the Postal Service, claiming now mail voting is a route to stealing the election. Yeah, he's been talking the whole stealing the election thing for years, so that's going to be the same. The Postal Service is in some trouble, but I was reading that that a lot of the trouble is from some legislation that was passed like 15 years ago or something like that, that forced them to pay forward on a bunch of pensions or something. I don't recall what the exact details were. It was a while ago, but it's a legislative fix that could be done. But Trump doesn't want the fix because he basically wants it to be privatized, from what I understand it. He wants everything, of course, to be privatized, basically. So it's kind of nonsense, but yeah. And Chemo says, LOL, he does. Thrump 2020. Yes, hail Thrump. Um, Heil Satan says atheism has always been more left to begin with. It's true that most atheists have tended to be a bit left. It was more so when there were fewer atheists, because at first, like, think of how social stratification is in the U.S. when it comes to politics. I mean, evangelicals have always been have been, or at least for decades, white evangelicals have been a huge voting bloc for Republicans, and so there's not, for anybody who is an atheist, that's not going to really be fertile ground for thinking that these people have your back, or have your same interests or same mindset on anything. So yeah, it happened to be more left. But now that there are more atheists, it actually means that there's a broader spectrum politically within atheism, and I see that even in my videos. Now I do actually get a fair number of people that are Republicans that come onto my videos and say, "Hey, you're full of it," or whatever. Which is, it's fine. It's an open forum, um, but yeah, it's definitely a difference. 5 states currently conduct all elections entirely by mail: Colorado, Hawaii, Oregon, Washington, Utah. Okay, good to know. Yes, Utah I knew, Oregon I knew. Um, all elections entirely. Oh yeah, I had heard about Colorado as well. I didn't realize Hawaii. Um, yeah. So Mr. Autopants says, yeah, the GOP in 2006 required the USPS to fund all pensions forever. Basically, the USPS was actually making money up until that law was enacted. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It was 14 years ago, I guess. That's exactly what I thought. And it was something I knew, it was something about paying, funding all pensions forever. Yeah, and I don't even know what the original. I don't know what the original impetus was to do that. I don't know if it was purposely to destabilize the USPS, but that was at a time in 2006. Republicans had both houses of Congress and the presidency, so at least I'm pretty, yeah, they did, yeah, they had both houses of Congress plus the presidency, so they could do whatever they wanted. I don't know if that was the original intent, but that certainly was the result, and maybe I would suspect that that's been passed through Congress, or through the House rather, but it's probably just not been taken up by the Senate. So nothing wrong with privatization so long as your government has strict regulation. Yeah, but that's not how anything ever ends up working, though. Unfortunately, um, hypothetically, sure. The left is Miguel says the left has gotten much more exclusive and funny enough. The right seems more inclusive recently. Does it really? um, More inclusive. Um, I'd love to hear how you believe it's more inclusive. Do you think Trump's extremely inclusive rhetoric has um, rallied everyone under the big tent of the Republican Party? Sure about that? So yeah, uh, semester in Germany. That must have been fun. Yeah, I don't. I mean, I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see what he says about that. Um, he thinks. I think Miguel is referring to neolibs and cancel culture. Um, Neolibs is one of those things I hear that thrown around a lot, and I looked it up a couple times, and I keep forgetting what the actual definition of it is, but it often seems to me like it seems like something that people throw at anybody that is somebody who's liberal but maybe doesn't love Bernie, or maybe they throw it at somebody who's think they're too conservative to be liberal. I don't know. I mean, I've had it thrown at me a couple times, but I'm kind of like, okay, sure. Let's see. And as far as cancel culture, I mean, sure, there's always going to be some people who will cancel people for silly reasons, but I don't understand like why people get into arguments about it that are like, well, I cancel this person, and then somebody will be like, no, you shouldn't cancel that person because blah blah blah. Like it shouldn't even have gotten to that level. If you want to cancel someone, then go ahead, cancel them. I don't know. I've never been canceled on any sort of um, I've never been canceled on any sort of significant level. No, I've never. There hasn't been a cancel Zaunstar hashtag that I've ever seen. So, and at my peak on YouTube, I had a bit over 20,000 subscribers, and I don't recall that ever happening to me. But yeah. Let's see. I feel the Meagle says I feel the left is not open to debate or open discourse, cancel culture, purity test, etc. Well, I mean, here I am. I mean, obviously I don't represent the entire left half of politics in the U.S., but I'm certainly in that group. I get see the thing. I get all these. I do hear that a lot, though, certainly from people that are more on the right. Um, People who are more on the right, I do hear all these concerns about cancel culture, and like, okay, it's silly. Most people on the left think it's silly too. That sort of it starts to veer into what I call nut picking. You pick some really weird people within your movement or group or whatever, and you say, well, that's the epitome of the people in that group. And people have been doing that for years. I mean, to be honest, a lot of people did that with religion too, with like Westboro Baptist Church and stuff like that, which not entirely fair, but that's it's all part and parcel of rhetoric in general. So, um, so you have a theory that new forms of media lead to an increase in popular delusions because people who dominate new media aren't dominating because of their content, but instead their skill with media. Well, yes, that there are a lot of people who are very gifted at putting out a message, even if it's wrong. They know how to put out a message, and they will do so in a very clever, very easy to digest way, and they'll get that message out there, and people will eat it up because they know what they want to hear. It's just like the pandemic stuff, about COVID and all that. Really easy to do if you're good at it. Um, Ed says, "Who do you like to be Biden's VP pick?" Um, as much as I like Warren, it shouldn't be Warren. I think that it probably should be. I really like Kamala Harris. The thing is, a lot of the more progressive wing, like the people who won't vote for Biden under any circumstances, don't like Kamala Harris. But if they're not voting for him anyway, I don't know why it matters then. If it doesn't matter who he picks for VP, I mean, I would like to have everyone aboard. I would like to make as big a tent as possible and make sure that everyone is involved. I want to involve people who are more progressive and progressive to the extent that they won't even vote for Biden. But for a lot of them, for most of them, it seems to me that it doesn't matter who they pick. So I do like Harris, but um, on Twitter when Kamala Harris started rising in her stature after that debate about what she said to Biden and stuff, which was brilliant. You had thousands of Bernie supporters on Twitter all saying Kamala Harris is a cop. Kamala Harris is a cop. Copy paste. 50 times, multiply that by 100,000 people, and it's you know it was pretty irritating. So I don't know. I do like Kamala, but Val Demings, maybe she's a better pick. There's some others that perhaps are a good pick too. So, and yes, Chris, you can go on Twitter tonight and do cancel Zaunstar. Maybe people will be like, "Who the hell is Zaunstar?" and people will be like, "Hey, who's this guy?" And then suddenly I'll become popular because I had a cancel hashtag after me. Um, let's see. And Live and Let Dice says, I'd say the purity test and stuff like that varies with how populist the person is, either left or right. The more populist, the less open they are. Really? Is that how that works? I don't know. Why would that be? I'll ask a follow up to that. Why would that be exactly? Do you think? Mr. Autopan says, I bet it will be Harris. Possibly. I think there's a decent chance. They obviously get along well. I think she's incredibly smart, very good debater. I think she would be fantastic in that position, but we'll see. I'm not. I mean, I'm open to suggestion. I hear Stacey Abrams. Not sure if I'm sold on her or not, but maybe. Let's see. Yeah, good to see you as well, Big Ralph Smith. I'm only gonna be on a few more minutes myself anyway. Do you still play Overwatch or did you jump ship? I have been playing Overwatch. I had been playing Overwatch, I should say, for years, pretty much for the last 4-ish years. It's been my main game most of the time, but a few times I've jumped. Whoops. So a few times I've jumped jumped to other games, and so yeah, I've been playing. Let's see, 7 Days to Die. I've been playing some other games here and there as well. Went back to Planet Side 2 for a little bit. I still do that occasionally, but yeah, yeah. Go ahead and follow me on Twitter if you're not already. I don't have nearly as much. I don't have nearly as many followers on Twitter as I have YouTube subscribers, but I don't know, 1,200 or something. So yeah, sure, make me feel better. But throw me a Twitter follow. I don't say a lot on Twitter. I try to make what I say count. I don't put a lot of flack out there. But let's see. What if you lived in an area Harris was in power and know her legacy via that? And Heil Satan, yes, I think that I do know people that lived in that vicinity and said that her record is not seen as good by those people in that area. I think part of that is difficult to avoid potentially because of the role that she was in and because of what's happening now. I understand why that's the case, and so that may be a good case for saying that she's not the right person to have that job now. Although Val Demings was a cop for a lot longer, but people seem to like her record better. But she also didn't. I don't. I'm not sure why all of that is. I'd have to look into Demings a little bit more. I am aware of what the I'm aware of the case against Harris by some people, etc. So I get that. Yeah, it may well not have been. Well, yeah, parts of it certainly were not good. Um, let's see. Harris does not win significant votes. That could well be. Abrams will be better, perhaps. Um, Live and Let Dice says it's just a trend I've noticed, and it also fits with the worldview of being outsiders fighting an elite or an oppressor. So they seem primed for that in my experience. There is, with populism, there is always this idea of this other, they're keeping you down. Like there's the whole the whole this whole like millionaires and billionaires, as Bernie always says, and corporations, etc. And they're right, but it does you have to back it up with some policy points, and Bernie does, and many others do as well. But it's also very easy to slip into that sort of, well, they're the enemy, and then you just become a demagogue and kind of useless. So you have over 3,200 hours in Fishing Planet. How many hours do you have in your most played game? Oh, I don't know. It's a lot. Fishing Planet. You play a fishing game for 3,200 hours? That is remarkable. Huh. You're in Scotland. You could fish. There's lots of fish in Scotland, right? I would think. Hmm. So, yeah. So I think this is about it for now. I'm going to wrap it up here. And thanks, guys, for coming on. And I'm definitely going to be doing some more streams here and there. and I'm gonna be mixing in some guests potentially and some other content, and I'm also gonna do it scheduled so you'll know in advance, so you don't so I won't just jump in and then I'll only get like 30. I think I had like 30 people at the height of it here. So anyway, thanks a lot, guys, and we will talk soon. And do you still talk to TJ? Yeah, TJ and I chat sometimes. Good guy. So all right, see you later. Thanks, Crocodile Army.